to the webinar of the Comfort Aids Community Forum, an inspired initiative of Comfort Aids project. A series of 3 expert-led sessions is organized and moderated by the Center of Research and Technology Hellas Information Technology Institute, CERT-ITI, with the support of INTRAS and EFEL. So thank you again all for joining this event today. The first webinar titled AI-based prevention of early signs of cognitive decline in older adults. Nikos, please go ahead. This is just an outline of Comfort Aids project. It is well known. But today, as I mentioned before, in terms of Comfort Aids Community Forum, CCF, we have organized the first, the previous slide, please. The first webinar titled AI-based prevention of early signs for cognitive decline of older adults in the context of thematic area 3. It is coordinated by me. I'm Sofia Sengouli from CERT, and my colleague Stelios Stylianos-Kokas, also from CERT. Next, please. This webinar it is mainly targeting in exploring the transformative potential of AI, artificial intelligence, in addressing cognitive decline and neurodegenerative conditions such as dementia and frailty. The session aims to highlight cutting-edge AI technologies and the critical applications in the specific domain of health and aging. We are honored to welcome distinguished keynote speakers with recognized expertise in AI and in applications related to neurodegenerative diseases. So big thank to Dr. Alexiadis Anastasios, senior researcher at CERT-ITI, with extensive expertise in AI and machine learning. Dr. Ira Hebold-Haratzlen, the project coordinator of AI Mind from the Oslo University. And last but not least, Professor Holger Freundlich, the head of the AI and Data Science Group and the deputy head of the Department of Bioinformatics at the Fraunhofer Institute. Next, please. A few key evidence-based facts on the role of AI in the cognitive decline. As it is well known, dementia and frailty represent a growing global health challenge due to their progressive nature and the current limitations in effective treatment options. Timely and accurate detection, along with continuous disease monitoring, is essential for enabling very early intervention and the development of personalized therapeutic strategies. In parallel, traditional diagnostic approaches often depend on subjective clinical assessments, and the manifestation of symptoms at later stages result in delayed intervention and suboptimal care. So in this context, AI, particularly advances in machine learning and deep learning techniques, have emerged as powerful and transformative approach, offering significant potential to improve the early diagnosis, prediction, and management of these diseases on the older adult population. And next, please. Artificial intelligence plays key functional roles in many specific areas such as the diagnosis, the monitoring, and the support and the research concerning the early prediction and management and effective management of cognitive decline. More specifically, AI algorithms, it has been proven that can facilitate the early detection of cognitive decline by analyzing brain imaging, biological markers, and clinical data, enabling timely and more accurate diagnosis of neurodegenerative diseases. Also, constant evaluation of behavioral patterns and cognitive performance made possible through AI-driven analysis and support proactive management of disease protection progression in real time. And according to the personalized support and the research advancement, AI contributes to the development of individualized care plans by providing predictive insights and empowering clinicians and caregivers to deliver more targeting and responsive care. Finally, AI has already proved the great potential of accelerating the identification of novel biomarkers and provide clear insights in the understanding of underlying mechanisms of neurodegenerative diseases. Next, please. Currently, the implementation of artificial intelligence in cognitive decline assessment has been supported by a range of advanced tools and technologies, including intelligent home monitoring system, sensor-based solutions to evaluate cognitive function and behavioral patterns in real-world environments. Next, please. So the application of artificial intelligence in the context of cognitive decline spans a wide range of advanced computational domains such as machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, and computer visions, and so on. This was, at a nutshell, the AI applicability in cognitive decline domain. Next, please. We are glad that keynote speakers will emphasize today on the transformative impact of artificial intelligence, and more specifically will highlight the contribution and the impact of AI in the field of cognitive health, present evidence-based insight into key areas of AI application, and leverage on AI potential to demonstrate that AI can enable early detection of risk factors associated with dementia, frailty, and other neurodegenerative diseases. Next, please. So, thank you very much. We are glad to now give the floor on the prominent researchers that have been invited in the present webinar. Dr. Alexiadis Anastasios will begin by providing us the state-of-the-art concerning the AI-based approaches for the prevention of cognitive decline. Tassos, the floor is yours. Thank you very much in advance.
Thank you very much, Sofia. So let me begin. Nowadays, artificial intelligence tackles many real-life problems, among them cognitive decline. It can be used in understanding, detecting, predicting, and preventing cognitive decline and neurodegenerative diseases. Some key areas are the following. We have early detection and prediction, where AI models are used to classify patients, analyze image data, and model disease progression. Multimodal data integration, where many sources, such as neuroimaging, genetic, and cognitive data, are combined for improved accuracy. Biomarker identification, where AI can detect relevant patterns in brain scans. And finally, personalized treatment. AI can also be used in targeted therapy, drug optimization, and in clinical trials. There are various trends related to the research on AI for cognitive decline, such as explainable AI, federated learning, ethical concerns, etc. Cognitive decline is a growing global concern in aging, particularly in aging populations. AI can be used successfully for early detection, patient monitoring, and personalized interventions. We will now take a look at some of the current research on the field. In early 2022, they explored how AI methods are being used to detect, predict, and understand cognitive decline and neurodegenerative diseases. They use SVMs, that is, support vector machines, and random forests for diagnostic classification, convolutional neural networks, for MRI, PET feature extraction, as well as AI techniques to combine neuroimaging, genetic and cognitive data for better prediction accuracy, as well as an increased focus on interpretable models due to the need for clinical trust. The results showed that multimodal data fusion improves accuracy. In Adita et al. 2023, they demonstrated how AI, by analyzing complex neurological data sets from various sources like neuroimaging, genetic profiles, and behavioral assessments, can accurately predict cognitive decline in its early stages. They used SVMs, CNNs, and autoencoders to analyze MRI PET scans. They used natural language processing models to identify speech and language impairments. And they used AI to detect supplicated speech changes using wearable sensors and voice analysis apps. And finally, they used EHR-based AI models to predict risk by analyzing the lifestyle, comorbidity risk, and genetics. The results showed that AI-based predictive models can effectively detect early cognitive decline using multimodal datasets. For the next paper, in Anti et al. 2025, they developed a predictive risk score model using dynamic Bayesian networks to forecast subjective cognitive decline and assess how modified lifestyle factors influence risk over time. Their model aims to support personalized prevention strategies. They use dynamic Bayesian networks to model probabilistic dependencies among risk factors such as smoking, BMI, and insomnia, and outcomes, SCD symptoms across 5 time points over 22 years. This method allowed modeling non-linear time-dependent and interdependent effects. Instructional learning combined expert knowledge and automatic score-based learning using the Gaussian normalized maximum likelihood criteria. The results showed better accuracy for register-based dementia diagnosis and dementia-related medical use. In the next paper, Hanke et al. 2022, they leveraged AI and ML to predict and prevent cognitive decline and dementia. Their work builds on the FINGER trial, a successful multimodal lifestyle intervention, and extends with digital tools and federated learning for scalability and privacy. They use supervised machine learning methods, such as regression models and assembly methods. They use deep learning models, specifically LSTMs, to model temporal progression of the risk factors. And they also used unsupervised machine learning techniques like clustering and autoencoders to identify novel risk patterns. The results showed that initial models showed a promise in short-term dementia prediction, and in phase 2, they aim to validate long-term predictions. In the next paper, by Angelucci et al. 2024, they tried to identify the underlying genetic mechanism in challenging of Alzheimer's disease. The data they used was among the following: a public DNA macroarray array data measuring gene expression levels, repositories of known genes associated with Alzheimer's disease, some additional data, gene ontology, as well as literature review. The authors developed a 6-phase methodology that integrates several machine learning techniques, such as decision trees, which are used to benchmark as a benchmark to filter results and set a minimum accuracy threshold for the following steps, quantitative association rule mining, the Garnet algorithm, ensemble approaches, and hierarchical cluster analysis. And the results showed that AI can greatly improve Alzheimer's disease diagnosis, treatment, and drug discovery, but its implementation faces hurdles solvable by data sharing and standards. In the next paper, by Subramanian et al., 2024, their study emphasizes that combining traditional and AI-based approaches could lead to more comprehensive and effective interventions for Alzheimer's disease patients. To fully use the potential of AI in improving Alzheimer's care and the quality of life for patients and their caregivers, the continued research and collaboration are essential. The methods used are machine learning algorithms to analyze medical images, like MRI scans, to detect changes in the brain that may indicate the disease, often enabling earlier and more accurate diagnosis. VITs are used to analyze medical images, helping to detect neurodegenerative changes and abnormalities associated with Alzheimer's disease. Natural language processing techniques can be used to generate personal narratives, reminders, and instructions for individuals with Alzheimer's, as well as to facilitate natural language interactions, communication. ML techniques are applied to various data sources, including genetic information, clinical records, and behavioral data, for tasks such as early detection, predicting disease progression, and personalizing treatment strategies. The integration of these AI-based technologies with conventional intervention has the potential to significantly improve Alzheimer's care by enabling more accurate diagnosis, personalized care plans, and enhanced support for both patients and caregivers. In the next paper, by Mayer et al., 2024, an AI is being used to improve Alzheimer's disease diagnosis through advanced analysis of brain scans, genetics, and clinical data. Machine learning and deep learning algorithms help identify patterns for earlier detection and personalized treatment strategies, including drug discovery and predicting disease progression. There are still challenges remaining, especially in ethics, data privacy, and integrating AI into clinical practice. For their methods, they use MRI, PET, and CT scans to visualize brain structures and detect Alzheimer's disease-related changes, like hippocampal atrophy and amyloid beta deposition. Machine learning models, particularly convolutional neural networks, analyze these images to identify patterns and abnormalities indicative of early Alzheimer's disease. AI algorithms can also automate the detection of amyloid plaques and tau tangles and help differentiate Alzheimer's from other dementias. The results showed that integrated neuroimaging analysis, precision medicine, digital biomarkers, and explainable AI can lead to earlier detection and better outcomes. Addressing ethical and technical challenges through collaboration is crucial for the responsible implementation of AI in Alzheimer's disease. In Victor et al. 2021, the authors emphasized that limitations of current diagnostic methods, which often struggle to identify the disease before clinical symptoms manifest. They highlight the potential of AI to analyze large data sets and identify subtle patterns that may indicate early stage loss. They use a Bayesian deep causal graph where nodes in the graph represent key variables such as genetic markers, demographics, cognitive, linguistic, psychological features, etc. The results showed and the researchers plan to use the Alzheimer's Disease Neuroimaging Initiative dataset to find genetic markers. They will also load a 5-year study in Hong Kong to see if these markers predict the development of low-enhanced sinus individuals.
Tassos, excuse me for interrupting, but you have to conclude. Excuse me for this.
Yes, no worries. I will proceed to the conclusions. Oops. Just a minute. So, some highlights from the current research are the following 3 papers. This work demonstrated concluding AI technologies show great potential for detecting and preventing cognitive decline with applications in diagnostics like lifestyle interventions and remote monitoring. AI models, especially when operating on multimodal data, enhance accuracy and personalization. And with wearables and digital biomarkers, cognitive health can be continuously tracked. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sorry for interrupting you, Tassos, but we have to follow the agenda timeline.
Yes, no worries, Sophia, no worries.
Thank you. Congratulations for your presentation. All of these presentations will be available to all attendees after the webinar. You can see the detailed information. I will send you all the relevant information. And now I would like to welcome Dr. Ira Habald-Haralson. Ira, thank you very much for being today with us, for joining us really with this evidence-based work. We are looking forward to hear you. So please, the floor is yours. Ira, can you hear us?
Oh, yes. Maybe do you hear me now?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank
you again. Thank you again. So the floor is yours. You can start. Much.
Yes, it is a pleasure presenting mainly 3 European projects. In fact, the one is the AI Mind, which is developing AI algorithm for the prediction, but not of dementia, but dementia risk in case of MCI or subjective cognitive decline. The other one is the eBrain Health initiative, which Rita and me founded and is headed from Charité, which is building a federated infrastructure for prospective sensitive health data between 16 European countries. And the third is then FluidDX ID, which is working with the biobanks of our initiatives towards identifying novel plasma biomarker in this field, especially in the field of risk for side effects called ARIA. The eBrain Health is a part of eBrains. As you know, eBrains is one of the 11 certified European health data platforms of the European Union, which also you may have seen is obliged to host most of our projects in the future, at least in the field of brain research. The key goals are, of course, enhancing our knowledge how to use and when to use AI. AI is not always sufficient or better than human detection, and especially when it comes to dementia, you may wonder if that is really a challenge. The diagnosis mainly that could be to be discussed, but when it comes to risk of future development of dementia states, that might be a demand, as we know, as medical doctors are not able today to predict this risk properly. Again, our 3 projects are in a broad range with all other kinds of European initiatives, and among all your projects now, which have been recently accepted. The main challenge I will already mention here on the second slide is that it is a problem with the data quality. AI is not applicable for all kinds of data. It demands on how they are structured, how the curation has been done, and so on. So, and there we are lacking evidence, and no doubt that the next step and the next Horizon program from 27 will align with the EDIT initiative, where I was so lucky also to be included. And EDIT is then underlining our European behalf for the virtual twin, which will demand a kind of merging between AI algorithm and simulation technologies. Because AI will not be a personalized approach. It will be still a group-based statistics. And what we really need, and what you have underlined already in the first 2 lectures, it is the demand for the personalization, as physiology is pretty highly individual varying. So the virtual twin will be a next revolutionary step, but this demands even more that you know which kind of data and how you have applied for. And that leads me to the curation. Curation is one of the major issues, and there is still not a European alliance about which kind of curation should be chosen. We follow in the eBrain project, at least in many countries, one curation language, but that needs also to be done, and it's very important. It needs to be done also for algorithm development. This cannot be strongly underlined, that an agreement as soon as possible on how we describe our algorithm developments and for notifying reasons for EMA or FDA is urgently needed. Next slide, please. What we do in the AI Mind framework is that we are interested in genetics, in proteomics, in, of course, cognitive and electrophysiological data and health record data. We have led to a standardized protocol how you can, how the AI Mind project in 8 involved countries is registering their data. Also, the calibration of hardware is important. In this case, as algorithms are highly hardware dependent, and you have also to develop a stable protocol that data you wish to merge fulfill either the quality that they can be merged, not only in the data itself, but also from where, on which instrument these data are coming. Or you have also to develop algorithms, again, who compensate for hardware differences. Also, this is possible, but it is complicated. And it's under-communicated that some of the cohort shifts and algorithm loss of power is connected just to those challenges. And as I mentioned before, we will not reach with these AI algorithm personalized medicine. We need, therefore, the human-based knowledge hypothesis-driven simulation technologies to be added on. Next slide. We are now within our last year of AI Mind. We are convinced that we can predict. We know in light MCI already what is going on and whom will be at risk. From the 100% of included patients, 50%, just as expected, had been selected, and we will publish these. But there are challenges when it comes to implementation. It is no doubt that for the MDR regulations, there is needed that you have stored your data correctly, not only correctly in GDPR or HIPAA standard, but also towards that you have divided your data banks in testing and developing and validation cases, and the validation cases should never be touched by any researcher if you want to get an approval for your algorithm in the future, and within the next 2 years you will not be any longer allowed to use not approved algorithm in hospitals. So you have to be assured that your data bank is fulfilling all kinds of notifying body standards. And AI Mind has publicly available quite a lot of webinars, which you may find interesting, where the notifying bodies are informing about their demands, especially if you want to develop your algorithm by yourself. It's no doubt that we need European solutions very quickly. We rely today all either on Google, Amazon, or Microsoft Azure services. This might also be a problem towards European solutions, as the European Union in our contracts expect that we should stimulate innovation. Many of our partners, industrial partners, would not even consider validation in Europe. So it is a need that we, as soon as possible, on a European level, agree on how we should do so to stimulate also European economic growth. That AI or simulation technologies have to be developed and implemented as fast as possible. I think is nobody doubting about. Next slide, please. The biggest threat is, of course, that the infrastructures in Europe have to be harmonized. It's not enough with research infrastructures. It's important that the federated system is including today almost everywhere to completely closed hospital environments. There has something to be developed, and as I mentioned, it needs a federated, standardized European infrastructures. This is especially important as our research cohorts, mainly at least in Northern Europe, reflect Caucasian people, but this is not enough. Algorithms have also to function in our immigrant populations, and they are underrepresented in our studies. So it could be a democratizing and an empowerment of the citizens of Europe if we succeed together with all other areas of climate change, maritime platforms, and so on, to agree on how Europe, how many and where should these infrastructures be placed. As I mentioned before, we need urgently this virtual twin development, as we need to merge simulation with AI if we want really to call it personalized. And dementia care is, in fact, in Europe costly. Percentage-wise, it's declining. It's not increasing, but the nominal value of aged people is increasing. Therefore, it is a problem. But therefore, we need also to understand which factors were, in fact, responsible for resilience, as resilience is the really key to prevention. And it needs the emphasis of Africa and Asia, where the real explosion of aging is expected. Therefore, it is worthwhile to look in those cases, MCI or subjective cognitive decline, who never develop further than the dementia complex. They might be even of more interest. Next slide. So, it is no doubt, as I said, it will have its breakthrough, and it's crucial for the outcome in dementia care. It will we have to develop predictive models, and prevention is here the key word. I think mainly it will need a change of leaderships in hospitals and healthcare systems, and maybe of interdisciplinary systems. I don't think that existing leaders between the age of 50 and 60 are applicable for this real change. I think the younger generation need to assist from an earlier age on in leadership to attribute all the kinds of modern knowledge we need. We have an undereducated leadership in regard to these technologies. I will only encourage that the European advantage should be proudly mentioned, that we have a transparency and we have democratic systems in our governments, far away from all kinds of autocracies, and that should be communicated. And we should think also if our hospitals should really be allowed to use algorithms which are not necessarily coming from nations which follow these ethical rules. And the industrial situation is just the opposite. There is almost very few European innovations in this sector, and it is an urgency. And I will remind all of you of the Draghi report, which reminded us in the beginning of this year how urgent our economic situation in fact is, and that we also in health industry and health research feel ourselves obliged to do our best in research to make it happen. Yes, and I think the last slide is then only the cybersecurity. I mentioned it already, that this is a huge stress, which is as well not to be solved by health. Totally the opposite. I recommend that highly that the interdisciplinary sectors are developing standards of cybersecurity, as health is only one aspect of how non-peaceful actions could be planned and could be implemented. And as we know from the biggest recent security issues, that they are mainly coming also from inside. So meaning we need standardization together with all other sectors. Data are today a major, and algorithm a major target of manipulation, and it will not disappear. It needs a regularly audited data process, and the maintenance of our data and data bank is maybe a major concern. One thing is to develop something in a project. Another thing is to maintain it and to make it then really approvable and also to be protectable. That is important. So the legal and defense interactions within our health platforms should be mandatory. And then the next slide. I like always the old-fashioned SWOT analysis, and I see a lot of strengths, a lot of challenges to overcome, which would mean mainly the infrastructure, the model interpretability, as I mentioned, with all the challenges of cohort differences, of hardware differences, also hardware formatting differences. We could not even agree on should we now all use bit formats or DICOM format. All these questions have as soon as possible, preferable within this year, to be agreed on. There are tremendous opportunities in these new technologies, and the main issue of the threats is, in fact, what we are doing in research is mainly not representable. It needs to show the efficiency, and in HTA models that it is really accelerating what we humans are doing, and the ethical concerns should also be more strongly formulated, as they make an industrial advantage, and they are a privilege. The European nations are in a far different European, at least 4,000 years tradition, which should lead us to be more or less at the head of it. And until now, it's no doubt that the US and China are leading, and we are far away. Therefore, we have to shape our minds, shape our discipline, and make it happen in a very short time frame. And everything of this is only meaningful if we reach the hospitals. Therefore, again, please organize your data so that they are, in fact, leading to something you can manufacture and you can later also industrialize. That is a mandatory act. And as far as I oversee the platform infrastructures included in eHealth, very few nations, if at all any, are in the moment in a situation that they could use correctly European developments and contribute. It is a danger that we Europeans are biased, but that we are not sellers of our innovations, and that would be the worst outcome we could produce. So it is important that we are all together aligning and do not see a discrepancy between research and industry. And there is a lot of European industry which we could support by our research. Thank you so much.
Thank you really for this excellent presentation, Ira. Very nice presentation. Thank you very much. We will come back to you after with some questions. And now I would like to give the floor to Holger Freundlich from the Fraunhofer Institute. Holger will represent an evidence-based research work in terms of predict.com towards early diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease via risk stratification. So, Holger, the floor is yours. Thank you very much in advance.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. Just to say a few words as a background. So actually, I'm a computer scientist by training, working for around 25 years or so in the intersection field of AI and biomedicine. And what I'm going to present here is about an IHI project, an ongoing IHI project within the, so this is the Innovative Health Initiative, a big European initiative bringing together industry and academic partners to solve or tackle really big problems. And in this case, the issue of earlier diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. So maybe first of all, a little bit towards the motivation. So as you probably know, so there are now new drugs approved or have been approved by the FDA, and also there have been recently a positive vote by the EMA. And these drugs obviously target beta plaque formation and slow down symptom progression in an early disease stage, and together with ATN biomarkers, which in the meantime, of course, also can partially be assessed in blood. So we have, for example, ways to measure now forms of tau in the blood. This, of course, opens new chances for Alzheimer's disease patients. However, at the same time, there are challenges, and these challenges are, of course, that indeed, yes, so we need to have a mechanism in place that needs that the disease is diagnosed in early, possibly prodromal stage, and at the same time, we have really an increasing disease prevalence, which I think also the previous speaker here outlined, particularly also in countries which have not maybe the same economic resources as we have. But we have these new treatments, but at the same time, an increasing number of people now will, of course, also ask for getting those. But of course, these new medications are at the same time very costly, and our healthcare systems have usually not the capacity to broadly screen basically everyone who has at first place maybe subjective cognitive impairments now with very costly diagnostic procedures, and then give everybody who feels like that maybe these new treatments. So therefore, we need a way how we really stratify for patients at first place who really have the highest unmet need here. If you go to the next slide, please. And this has actually also been outlined a bit further here from a health economic perspective from one of the members of our advisory board here, Sören Matke. So he is a health economist. And in essence, what he calculated here in one of his papers was the number of dementia specialists that we have per 100,000 inhabitants in different countries here on the left side, and also the number of PET scanners which we have per 1 million patients, which is of course has to be seen as, let's say, the resource that we have in our healthcare systems on one hand. And if you go then to the next slide, if you contrast this, however, then with the number of people that may at some point have subjective cognitive impairments, so then, of course, this far exceeds these numbers shown on the previous slide. And again, this is here from a figure from the paper of Sören Matke, so by which he then calculated, in essence, the expected waiting times that people would have to see actually a neurologist and receive a proper diagnosis at some point. And of course, also these figures that you see here, these very concerning figures here, so are further elevated then, of course, also by the demographic developments that we have in our in our Western countries. So altogether, this really underlines the situation, so that with current healthcare capacities and the increasingly expected number of people with at least subjective cognitive impairments, we do not have enough resources to really properly screen everybody and maybe also properly treat everybody at first place. So we need mechanisms that we focus our healthcare resources on those who really have the highest unmet need. So if we go to the next slide, please. So this is in essence exactly also the motivation now behind what Predictome is about. So Predictome is, as I mentioned in the beginning, an an IHI project with in fact about 30 partners. So half of the funding here comes from industry. And in essence, it is meant to set up an AI-based screening platform for earlier diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. And we want to, of course, heavily leverage here also AI models in this context. And that's, of course, also what Fraunhofer, where I'm coming from here, contributes here in this context. So basically, the high-level strategy that Predictome follows is outlined on the right-hand side. So the idea is that at the very beginning, of course, people will feel certain symptoms, certain subjective cognitive impairments for themselves at home. No? And you need mechanisms to bring them earlier at first place, maybe to a general practitioner at first place. Yeah? So, and for this, the idea is so that we have at the very beginning an online self-assessment, and via that, this is a platform in which people can then perform different cognitive tasks on their own, on web-based way, and basically receive then feedback from this test that they have, and if the online assessment then in essence tells them, okay, so this is based on a comparison group of the entire people that have participated in this test, you are kind of abnormal in some sense, so then you're advised to visit a GP. And now the GP has, of course, also an issue. Of course, the GP cannot make a dementia diagnosis in a proper manner, so or an Alzheimer's diagnosis, let's say, in a proper manner. But what a GP can do is maybe to assess different risks based on, for example, digital tools. Yeah, so this is the second stage then in this journey that we think a patient would run through in the future. Yeah, so for example, via different digital device technologies, or even also, and this could, for example, include here. So this is just mentioned as an example. You also EEG, wearable EEG devices. And of course, in many countries, GPs have also access to EHR data, which also contains a lot of information. So, and then the thought is so that a GP based on this data then is allowed, and models, of course, that use the variety of this data then are allowing then to make a risk assessment and then only send those people which have really a high risk for for example, Alzheimer's disease, then to a clinic, to a neurologist, in which then a proper diagnostic is performed. So if we go to the next slide, please. Of course, we need to test this entire strategy, right? So, and for that, in Predictome, we run a very specific type of study. So at the very beginning, in essence, we think about a patient sitting at home, so as discussed on the previous slide. And for that purpose here, so we leverage an already existing platform, which is called Protect, and which is available, has originally been set up in the UK, but is in meanwhile also available in several other countries, so including Norway and Switzerland and Spain and so on. And as discussed, based on this platform and according models that we can construct from the data that is already actually existing on this platform, we can identify people with a certain elevated risk. And then these people are sub-selected. And they are those which we think are those that might go as a second stage to a GP, performing a further risk assessment. Yeah? And then eventually go to a next level here. So this is here, what is on the right-hand side here, then shown here with this box here, for an in-depth screening in essence of around 600 people then, which then would also inspect it at the last stage then for example, typical biomarker abnormalities, so including amyloid beta. So if you go to the next slide, please. So let me elaborate a little bit more about this very first stage again. So the online self-assessment at home. So as said, so this is something that already exists. So this is called Protect. And you can, for yourself, if you want, test it actually. And here on the left-hand side, you will see an overview about the different test batteries so that are available in the Protect platform here. And which at the end of the day, via performing different self-tests here on the online, allow you to construct something like a so-called flame test, yeah, so a flame score, which then allows to perform this very first screening of people. You go to the next step. Second thing is then, as said, so the idea that the patient goes to a GP, and at this point, then of course digital tests come into play. So, for example, one approach here, which we have also previously tested in our prior IMI project, Radar AD, is an augmented reality environment called i2EDA, and also a app which simulates banking operations. And third, also a hearing test. And again, so there are models behind. So all of these different device technologies at the end of the day produce a lot of data and a lot of features, and we need to combine and aggregate these data with the help of machine learning models, so then to predict in essence a risk for a patient. And here in this particular case, for example, for the banking app, we are in a good situation that we have, due to the prior Radar AD project, even such models already at hand. So if you go to the next slide, please. So then a further step that we think can also be in the future be done at home even is up to some extent even biofluid collection. So for example, from blood via finger prick test or salvia, which allows to assess epigenetic modifications and genetic variants, at least selected ones. And also a microbiome from stool. And for example, here for epigenetics and genetics, we have here a company on board called Mudo, which has also an accompanying app then, so in which then the results so basically the idea is the patient takes, for example, spits in a certain tube. The tube is sent back to a doctor, and then there's a genetic assessment done, so at the lab, and then via an app, in essence, results are communicated back to the patient via this app. So if you go back to the next level. So of course, it's as already indicated in between, AI models, machine learning models come into play here at different places in this project. So for example, when you think about the very beginning here, so this Protect platform, so we need models, so-called normative models, which then look at this flame test battery results and identify outlying patients. We have, as also already discussed, also already models at hand which look, for example, predict based on, for example, banking app simulations, whether somebody might be at a risk. And Then, of course, further down the road, if people go to the GP, there are further models that will be used. And finally, of course, also at the clinic, at the clinic level, when a lot of different data modalities, including, for example, MRI, genetics, and neuropsychological tests are available. We go to the next slide, please. So just to give you one example here, around the use of electronic health records here. So if you go to the next slide here, and so these, what you can and what we know, of course, is from the literature, for example, from the Lancet Commission paper, is that there exists a number of known risk factors, in general known risk factors for dementia, all-cause dementia. Which you can see on the right-hand side. And most of these risk factors can actually be quite easily assessed at the GP level and often typically part also of the electronic health record systems. And interesting enough, of course, many of these risk factors, because they are lifestyle associated, can also potentially be prevented. So these risk factors, of course, may differ between individuals. And of course, the individual overall risk then for dementia is a combination of risk factors at the end of the day. So it's not sufficient, therefore, if you want to look into the individual, to just assess the average effect that an individual risk factor has, but really to look into the entirety of possible risk factors that a given person has. So now if you go to the next slide, please. So this is, of course, then only possible if one uses machine learning approaches, so-called time-to-event models in this particular case here. So which in essence then combine here these different known risk factors from a person's history, so which are associated to lifestyle, to medical history, to demographics, and then predict, in essence, for the future, whether or not at a given point in time, what the probability might be then to convert or to achieve the diagnosis of a dementia at some point in the future. And of course, there are some technical hurdles or some technical challenges with these type of models here, so such that typically the data when training such models is, as we say, right censored. So some people in the training data actually may have already an observed dementia at some point and some others not. So therefore we need a particular type of models here for this purpose. If you go to the next slide here. So in our particular example here, so what we did here is used to train such a model data from the UK Biobank. We used patients that were older than 50 at baseline. So we had altogether around 9,000 patients then at the index date. After the index date, so which at some point received a clinical dementia diagnosis, 35,000 which died, and altogether around 300 subjects that fulfilled our inclusion criteria. And we used from each of these patients here only known dementia risk factors according to what I have mentioned previously, has been reported also by the Lancet Commission. And you can see here this list here below in the green texts. So these comprise demographic information, medical history, family history, as well as lifestyle associated aspects. So we go to the next slide, please. So then, as said, so we can train actually models that predict as a function of time actually the probability to convert in the future to the diagnosis of dementia. Of course, such models can be tested on held-out data. Yeah? And in essence, what one can then report is the prediction performance accordingly of these models. And in this case here, this is the area under AUC, under RC curve as a function of time. And what we in essence here could find is that with our models, we were able to predict the risk up to 10 years actually in advance, relatively accurately, and far better actually than a reference model that would only use age alone. If you go to the next slide, please. So now, of course, the question is, how can we use such a model in practice, right? So the way that we think about this is, and that we also want to use in our predictome now for the clinical validation study is the following. So we have, in essence, based from these models, the possibility to perform a risk stratification. Yeah? So basically, we can say who is at a very high risk, who is at a very low risk, so below a certain risk threshold, and also somebody who is, let's say, at a medium risk level. And those which are, of course, at highest risk are those which we would send then in our predictome study to the in-depth assessment. We would also, for comparison, send the ones with very low risk as well to the in-depth assessment, and then, of course, try to assess whether indeed there are differences in terms of specifically amyloid beta. And a real-world application now, so this is the rightmost column. So how would this then be used? Well, in this particular case, we would say so that the highest risk one would be sent to the neurologist. For the lowest risk one would say, okay, at the moment, do not need to do anything. And for those who are at medium risk, we would then say, okay, so probably we need to reschedule a meeting with them maybe a year later or so. If you go to the next slide, please. So to summarize, so what I believe makes predictome relatively unique is that it is an AI-assisted screening platform to identify individuals at risk of developing Alzheimer's disease in a pre-symptomatic stage. We use here for this a combination of various technologies, so biofluid samples, innovative digital technologies, so including eye tracking, EEG, this banking app, but also, of course, at later stages than MRI. And as discussed, we use a lot of AI for actually disease risk identification. And I hope I have exemplified this here in at one place here. So the hope that we have here is that at the end of the day, we are able to also specifically strengthen at home diagnostic assessments and markers, and therefore contribute to a step change in the care pathway of early cognitive impairment. To go to the next slide. So I want to conclude by acknowledging, of course, the predictome team. So it's a large team here comprising of, as I said, 30 partners here. And I particularly want to point out here our scientific coordinator, Doug Ostland, from King's College and Stavanger University, and Timo Schirmer from GE Healthcare. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. I'm really impressed from your speech, Holger, and also from the previous speeches. Congratulations to all of you. Now we have some questions about your presentations, and I proceed with these questions, and then I will summarize the speech, the conclusions of these webinars. First, we would like to ask Ira. We have a question from Nicholas Luke. If it is possible, because as we know, we are running Comfort8 project. This is also a very large-scale project with a wide range of diverse data. We would like to kindly ask you, Ira, if data that are collected currently by AI Mind project could possibly be reused by our project, in terms of our project.
Of course. We are already publicly available, curated on eBains. You can find the correct curation. We had to be careful with we can't inform because we had prospectively included 1,000 patients. So we are not telling you everything or in the publicly available curation file, but you get all the information. You can contact us, and as I know also some of your partners, and we are working cross project wise, it would be easy to agree on which kind of data you could reuse, of course.
Thank you very much. Data openness is very important for research. We all know this. Thank you very much, Ira. And another question also from Nicholas Luke. It is for Holger. As the initial stage under patient control requires analysis of biofluids, how would you see this to be implemented in health systems?
Yeah, so well, I mean, the idea here is that indeed some of these biofluids, as said, so for example, where this finger prick test are very cost efficiently doable at scale, in fact. Yeah. So, there are companies actually who offer such tests now. Yeah. So, therefore they could actually complement. Yeah, so what typically a GP does. Yeah, so typically you of course go to the GP, and then GP may take some blood from you, right? So etc. Yeah, but in the future maybe such tests could actually probably be done even at home. Yeah, so because this is a relatively simple procedure. Yeah, so you could then simply send according a card with your blood drop to a laboratory, yeah, and you get in essence directly a result back. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Holger, and again apologies for the delay in your speech. Thank you again for your answer. Is there another question? Because I have also... Yes, Ira? Yes, sure.
Yeah, I only wanted to comment to Holger. Of course, also the blood biomarker issue, all kinds of more specific neurodegenerative biomarking is still not launched on the market. Roche Diagnostic has announced now over a year they would come to the market. They are still not on the market, and the price is pretty high. But again, I guess in so many studies, p-tau markers and others have been used already, and so I will guess if in 2026 they are coming finally on the market, then on NC2N will do the same, then I guess the price will also be lowered. And that is, of course, the markers of the future in the first run, because they are reliable. And it took almost 15 years to make them inter-cohort stable enough. So it's not an easy issue with the blood biomarkers, but the first three, I'm pretty sure, will come very soon.
Yeah, so the feedback that I get from physicians on that is in essence that they don't see that these, for example, phospho-tau biomarkers would be something that in the future a GP could assess. Yeah? So that, but this would be more something that at the memory clinic could be done. Yeah? So therefore, we are still faced with this problem, how do we get the people there, right? So.
Yeah, I disagree. So it will be, but it's right. You have to understand the limitation of interpretation in each biomarker. But yeah, we will see how this is going.
We have an additional comment. I think that you have already answered indirectly, but I'd like to highlight. I'm really asking to highlight it again. Could those simple biofluids analysis be reimbursed without prescription? This is a question from Lucas again.
One more time, what did he ask?
Could those simple biofluids analysis be reimbursed without prescription?
Yeah, also this is, I mentioned this a little bit, and I don't know what Holger thinks, but or Predictorm thinks, but we have to show in a global health perspective that really the HTA evaluation of what we are doing in the moment is keeping high standards. Therefore, because there is no, as MRI, for example, PET, that are technologies which in its recent form will not be introducible globally because you do not have access to MRI in Africa. 45% of our population in the next 15 years will live in Africa. It's not, Alzheimer is not a problem of Western world, to be frankly open. So the challenge is there where you do not have access to high technology, meaning that we have quickly to show in Predictorm or AI Mind or FluidX that or together with a combination, for example, with you, Sophia, and we have to merge all our data and to show that they would keep HTA evaluation and would really show an effect. Then you can discuss distribution where it burns. And then you have a low, what should I say, a low diagnostic, non-research demanding approach. That must be the goal if we want to solve this global health pandemic situation of aging. Also, the aging factor is, of course, in those continents biggest because they really get by infection disease treatment older. They died early because they all died of malaria or whatever. So this will change. And then we are really stuck. And I had an interesting conversation with Eli Lilly. They really said what AI Mind is a diagnostic change to a diagnostic non-human influenced program. And this is what the world needs. And but it needs to be reliable, and it needs to be shown. And therefore, I was so very much on you to do it correctly, split your cases, and take care of the validation cases that you never have ever touched them, because otherwise, none of your developments will be approved. Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Ira. Thank you very much. And an additional question, actually, it is in the notion of the observation that I would like to make. It is from our coordinator, George Magnas. As we are moving to a future where the multimodal analysis and integration are on the forefront, and we see many big companies and pioneers, for instance, Google, developing and offering solutions, how our projects and SMEs can better exploit our solutions in the market. What are the challenges related? So you can answer both. You also, Tassos, Holger, Ira, you can all answer to this question.
Well, I mean, of course, we have to first understand so that I think the question goes around usage of AI models, right? So that the use of such models in clinical routine is subject to regulatory acceptance. Yeah? So, and this has to be like that. Yeah? So we cannot just say, yeah, I have a cool model and now apply it to patients. Yeah? So this is not how it is. Yeah? So there is a rigorous assessment. Yeah? So which typically also requires prospective validation, for example. Yeah? And only if, in essence, this regulatory assessment is positive. Yeah, so then such a model may be used on the market. Yeah. However, of course, at this point, and also there's another question coming up, which is also slightly related to the previous one. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, this is also an economic question. Yeah. So, in essence, for the developer of such models, yeah. So is there actually a business model now behind? Yeah. So can I actually make money with such a model? Yeah, or not? Yeah. So for example, is this reimbursed? In fact, yeah. This, however, will depend on the actual benefit versus risk ratio. Yeah. So how much benefit do I get by such a new technology versus additional costs? Yeah, so that it may produce, yeah, or save, possibly also. Yeah. So this is something that we have, of course, to critically assess in the future, and we will see. Yeah? So let's say how in which way this then what solutions actually make it to the market. Yeah. In practice, of course, when we also talk about this first step going to the market, right? So we have also to see that the AI Act plays a role here. Yeah. So in Europe, we have, of course, a very strict regulation, yeah, compared to the international situation. Yeah. And of course, this is at least a challenge. Yeah. So for smaller companies. Yeah. So not so much for bigger ones. Can afford to hire 100 other lawyers or so.
I would also add that the companies are moving faster than current research. For example, OpenAI releases new GPT models very soon, one after the other. So current research that may utilize an LLM, like, for example, GPT-4, will soon find itself let's say, outdated, because there will be a newer GPT model on the market that will have to alter the research to use a newer one.
Yeah, of course, there's basically with any product, right? So there's a product cycle also behind such models. Yeah, so this is also to be seen. Huh?
May I only add, as it is also, of course, a political decision making. So you have to decide if you really want to become a seller or not. And this is a question which is highly politically dependent, because the European Union has to act together. If we want to be a market about 700 million people and compete against 450 million or be against 1.4 billion, then we have to make a political decision that we really wish to do so. And if we have made this decision, then we have to agree on how the game should be played. And as I mentioned carefully, I see our AI Act as a tremendous, beautiful action, which we should be proud of, and which should lead to sanctions of those algorithms not fulfilling AI Act standards. That would already exclude quite a lot of algorithm bought in. And again, but that is a political willingness really to come into the forefront. And the other action is that the universities have to understand that they have to deliver research which is in fact industrializable. And mainly researchers living in their own world and develop everything. And AI researchers are funded at the moment quite a lot in all directions, but they are not funded to deliver a product which is in fact approvable. And that is the biggest waste of money we are doing at the moment. So therefore, it needs this discussion between academic leadership, political leadership, and industrial leadership in Europe.
Yeah, I would even also add so that there's a gap, a funding gap. Yeah. So if you want to go really from the, let's say, proof of principle in an academic setting, yeah, so to really bringing such a solution to the market, who pays for that? Yeah. So basically, as said, so this costs really a lot of money. Yeah? So due to the also the complexity of the European regulation. Yeah? And is for academic institutions hardly affordable. Yeah, so and for also smaller companies as well. Yeah, so this is a big challenge. At the moment, we are giving high preference to big companies actually in Europe. Yeah, so with the way that the regulation currently works. This is again, it's a political decision. Yes, I think it has also something to do with the, let's say, power game behind the scenes in Europe. Yeah. And we will have to see what the future brings here.
So thank you. So we have, as it is derived from the overall discussion, AI applicability has a number of several of challenges to cope with, such as politically oriented, but we have also challenges from ethics and legal lens. These challenges have already been highlighted by Ira in her presentation. And I would like to ask, actually, this is also a question from Luke. According to the AI regulations, do you see practical solutions how we could collect more evidence, and I will add more evidence with quality and as quick as possible for most promising products without waiting for the final approval, because this is also, as a researcher, in our daily routine, we are facing this challenge, waiting for a long period to receive approvals from our pilot operations for AI applicability and so on. So, which is your opinion about these challenges and how we could possibly face them?
I think we have to distinguish between basically generating evidence in terms of research, yeah, and basically then the approval and release of a product to a market. Yeah, so these are two different things at first place. Yeah. So if you talk about generating evidence in terms of research, so then it's largely about data privacy aspects. Yeah, so GDPR, of course, is here a big thing. Yeah. And yes, data sharing is also not easy, very difficult actually in the European Union. In all of our projects, actually, and we have many projects, I can tell you that typically takes about 1 to 2 years actually to conclude a proper data sharing agreement. Yeah. So this has also something, again, to do with the complexity of the law. It has also something to do with the heterogeneity of the law in different national legislations. Yeah? So the European Union is setting a rule framework, but then the national legislators do their own business. And they may do this slightly different. Yeah? So the way that the GDPR is implemented in Germany versus, for example, Norway or so is not identical. Yeah. So therefore, I think if we want, as the European Union, we make a step forward there. So we have also to think how we better harmonize the national implementations of European regulations. Yeah. So and maybe also how we simplify things in the future a bit more. Yeah.
Yes, I agree, Holger. And also I would like to add something that has been already mentioned by Ira, that what is missing so far is to enroll in our research and in our also industry-oriented works, the advancement and the awareness of personnel that is involved in this AI-oriented work, because we all know that technical personnel are not always skilled with the requirements that are let's say, needed, are demanded in the frame of AI-oriented works and
Yes, I
applicability.
think this is of course important, right? So I mean, in fact, many of the projects, right, so including Predictome, this is highly interdisciplinary, right? So indeed, it is true, yeah. So that nowadays, to be successful in this area, we need to bring there together, of course, people more from a technical background, like myself, yeah. So with physicians, with, of course, maybe people who are patient representative, legal people are very important. In fact, in the meantime, yeah. So this is of course necessary, yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
But I think one aspect which was, maybe I underlined that not enough, is also there is a danger that the citizens feel even more fooled than before. Because if I deliver my personal data and a private company like Google becomes richer on the stock market, but I get less access to public services, then I feel a little bit loss of power. And what the HTA models as well not include is how should we organize in Europe a payback economic model, so that the state is allowed to handle with my data from my body, but at the same time that my country is getting more tax money back indirectly in one or another sense, so that I do not suffer from losing sports activity for my children, or free school, or university access, or whatever. This is shown in, for example, in our country, it is shown how well that can function and how rich a country can become by dealing its resources and industrialize its resources perfectly. Like in the oil industry, we became the richest country of Europe. And because we had politicians who were wisely, and the oil industry is taxed by 70%. They are still the richest companies worldwide, but they pay, in fact, 70% of taxes. And that is making Norway rich. And of course, such models need also to be pretty early introduced, how we have to do this in the new health industry with AI, because it will create polarization otherwise, and we see that already in many of our friendly neighbor countries, that this is a challenge, and we can't continue getting the stock market even richer for Amazon and Google. That is not Microsoft. This is not the way to go. For democracy's survival, this is impossible.
Thank you very much, Ira. Thank you, Holger. Thank you for your presentations, Tassos, Alexiadis. Thank you all for your attendance today. We have prepared also a Google form with some open and close-ended questions. We are kindly asking you after the webinar and in your availability to fill in this Google form, because as you can find the link in the chat. This would be very useful to complete our research and also summarize all the extremely useful evidence that we have gained today, all of us. Thank you again for this extremely challenging and interesting webinar. A big thank you to the presenters. I'm very glad that I met you, really. If there is no other observation or question, we will conclude. We will close because we do not have a time. Additional time. Thank you all. Thank you, Indras. Thank you, Ethel. I would like to thank Sylvia, Irene, Luke, all my colleagues and partners from Comfortates. And I'm really happy to have this webinar. Thank you again. Have a nice day. And I hope to see you again in our next webinars.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye all.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.